morning again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our second competition webinar. We had our first one yesterday. We're on to day 2 today on Wednesday, and our final one tomorrow. So for any of your club mates, if you think that it'd be worthwhile for them to register, they have still got a chance tomorrow, so you can let them know that. And we are also recording these sessions, so we'll be putting a recording on our website. Understanding that some people are at work and for different reasons may not have been able to actually sit in on one of these, or you might like to just go through it again as a bit of a refresher prior to the start of the season. So basically what we're covering today is how to input your results for after pennant games. So in particular, if you're a match manager or thinking about being a match manager at your club, it's really important that you know this process. It is very similar to last year. There's not a huge amount of change. Might be just some changes in the look of things and a bit of the outlay, but for the most part, it's very similar. So if you are doing it again, hopefully you'll recognise most of it. And if you're learning it for the first time, hopefully you'll find it pretty straightforward. So we know that it's very early or late, depending on how you want to look at it, for the new season. However, we thought it was such a great opportunity at the moment with so many people at home and wanting to fill their day with what better way than to look at Kelvin and I for 30 to 40 minutes for this training. So look, in all seriousness, hopefully you get a bit out of it, and it does help in preparation for the new season. So joining me today is Kelvin Rogers from Bowls Australia. Kelvin is our guru across all things BowlsLink. He did website training for our clubs last week, and this week we're on to competition. So with no further ado, I'll hand over to Kelvin, and at his screen you can see, and he'll go through the competition portal for us.
Thanks, Beck. Welcome everyone, and good morning. We should be able to get through this, I hope, and like Beck said, probably about half an hour or 40 minutes. If you do have questions, please feel free to ask. Beck will monitor questions and let me know when they come up. I'll be working from what we call the beta system today, which is the training system, but this is an exact replica of how everything operates in the real system. And the reason that I use the beta system is because ultimately what I don't want to do is record matches against people's profiles when they don't actually play and things like that. So I'm basically not messing up anyone's data here. So what you'd see here is effectively the login screen for BowlsLink. I've put in a national ID number and the password that I know goes with that national ID number. So that would be my own personal data. I guess, sorry, my apologies. So today what we'll do is we'll look at how to put your teams into the system, how to put scores into the system and when you can do that. And we can look at how to give other people within your club the ability to put teams and things into the system, or to put in teams and results. And then we can talk about how we actually gain access to BowlsLink, and Beck may have, I know there were a few questions about that yesterday. So if you do have any questions, please let us know and we can go through it all.
And sorry, I forgot to mention in the intro that if you are new to the webinar setup here, there is a Q&A box on your screen. You can type in any questions you like to us, and we can get you the answer. So that'll pop up on our screen, the question, and we'll be able to answer that. I just ask you to use the Q&A one, not the chat one, because the Q&A one just records those questions for us to look back at later and make sure that we can keep a bit of a record on what some frequently asked questions are. So thank you.
So what we'd do is, the first thing we'd need to do is we'd need to sign in, and all we'd do is put in either our email address or our national ID number or our mobile phone number and our password. And then we can log in, and it will ask us to select a context. In this case, I know that we were in my Tasmanian club. For most people, when you look at that context box, it's probably only going to have one box. And for those who are club administrators, it's the club box, not the club administration box, that we need to look at. And when you come in, what you'd be able to see is your own personal data here. For pennant, what we want to look at is the competitions tab, which is located here on the left-hand side. And when we click on that, what we'll get is a list of all of the pennant competitions that we can manage. In this case, there's only one because we're just doing a quick demonstration. And everything that I want to do can be done from the actions button over here on the right-hand side. So from here, what I can do is, the first thing I want to look at is to manage results. And when I go to manage my results, I'm in Club 3. And so my first game here is the game that I want to manage, and I can go in and view my results. And what you'll get to is a screen that looks like this, that has the 3 teams that are playing and your scores. And what I need to do really is to select my team. And all I need to do that is click that big blue button. And from there, I'll get a drop down that only has my name in it at the moment, because what I need to do is to fill those boxes or the positions with people from my club. And in order to get everyone else from my club who's eligible to play, I need to click on the blue button. And from there, I will get a list of my members. We are going to try and work on getting that to be alphabetized. But if you know that you're looking for Joe or John, in this case, I can put in the letters, I can start typing Joe and I get Jordan Hughes. So that's who I'm looking for, and I'll import them. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and start importing my members into my teams. And I'll do that for my first team, and then I'll start doing it for my second team. And as I work through, I can just pick up all of my members. Pop them into my teams. And then for my third team, again, I don't want anyone who's already been selected. And once I've done that, my teams are ready to go. So best practice is probably to do that before the game. Probably at the end of selection night, you can go in and just put in the teams that will be there, because you can change the teams at a later date. So if, for instance, there is a minor change, and we'll go through how to do that as well, we can actually go in and make those changes within the team after the match or prior to the match, depending on when you want to do it. And what I'll do from there is I'm going to log out. Then what I will do is I'm going to log in as a member of Club 4, and the Club 4 match manager will do pretty much exactly the same thing at the end of their selection night. One of the big changes from last year was, last year you used to have 3 tabs across here when you were doing your putting your teams in. We've kept it so that you will see all of your games in here until they have been marked as completed, so until the results have been confirmed, at which point they'll pop into the completed box. So if you need to do any editing, it should be in the pending tab. And if I go into my results, I can then start putting some of these members in as well. So that what I can do is, all I'm doing is completing my 3 teams of 4 players and making sure that I have all of my members in place. And then once I've done that, so effectively what you would end up with is, prior to the match, hopefully, what you would end up with is the ability to see who's actually playing from both sides. And there's who they are. They're not necessarily going to be matched up with who they actually play against, but that's what you would want to do prior to the game, just so that you don't have to do too much on the day when you get there. Then what will happen is you'll head out on the day, you'll do your card swapping, you will play the game, and then the home team, so in this case, Club 3, will come back in. I'm the match manager for the home team, so I'm going to come in and I will manage the results. And what I will do is I'll view these results and I'll go, right, so team 1, yes, Jenna did play Amanda, and their result was 32-27, and I'll save that. And then for team 2, Nadia didn't actually play Nicole, Nadia played Kim. And so from my little actions on the right-hand side for that, I can swap my away teams, and I can pick either Amanda, which is not correct, or I can pick Kim. And when I swap them, those two teams have now changed place. So as the home team, I'm making sure that everything is aligned correctly and that the scores reflect the actual result. And once I've done that, I can then complete it. So we didn't have anyone pull out. We had no changes to our team here. And all I'm going to do is double check that my total shots match. So 66 played 70, and that my points are correct. And then I'll complete it. And as a home match manager, that's kind of all I need to do. And then what should happen is my good friend, the away match manager, can log in to theirs. And when they go in and they go to manage results, what they'll see is 5 played 1. They'll view their results. Now they'll be able to go through, and if the home match manager hasn't done the changes on the teams, the away match manager can. So if they go, oh, well, actually, Kim didn't play Nadia, Kim played Jenna, they can swap the away teams if they need to. Or they can make a change. So I can manage this team and I can say, well, actually, Colin didn't play. We actually played short because Colin was feeling unwell this morning and we didn't have a substitute. And therefore, we have an unplayed in our team number 1 because they weren't actually there. Once I'm happy with the scores and I make sure that everything's correct, all I'm going to do as the away match manager is press confirm. And the second that I do that, all of our ladders update in the back end and on your portals, and all the results go through, and these are set in stone. And once that confirm button's pressed, the only person who can then change this is a competition administrator. So make sure that everything is correct before you press the confirm, because otherwise the competition administrator is going to have to go in and make any changes that you've done there. So that is the ideal situation for how you can put scores in and what should happen before games and post games. I'm pretty sure that's how it worked last year in most parts of Tasmania. What is new this year is, as a match manager, I can actually manage our entry. And when I go into my entry, I can see this is the competition we're playing in, the dates, my team name. I am the primary contact, so I'm the person who's actually in charge of the team. I'm the match manager. That could be the match manager, or it could be your club administrator. It will depend on what your club chooses to do and how that's set up by your administrators. But what I can do this year is I can come in here and I can say, oh, actually Tracy is going to do match managing for me this week because I'm not going to be there. And so what I can do is I can go in and, using the arrow on the right hand side, drop that screen down. There's Tracy's name, that's the club. I can allow Tracy to manage this entry. And once I hit save on that, what that means is that when Tracy logs in, she'll have exactly the same ability as I have to come in and manage the competition. So she can come in and put the scores in and do things like that. And that's sort of one of the big things this year, is that we're allowing anyone, the clubs can allow anyone they want to go and do that, and they can set all of that up themselves. There's no reliance on the club administrator to do it. The match managers can have that control and ability to do it, and it makes it probably a little bit easier administratively for everyone to do that. And then say in 2 weeks' time, I'm back from my holiday, and Tracy doesn't want to do it anymore, or even have the ability. If we want to, we can come in and take that off Tracy as well. And I can save that. And when I go back out, it doesn't look any different, but Tracy will have lost the ability to do anything within her pennant competition that she would have had.
The important thing about this, guys, is that you don't need to any longer come through us at Bowls Tas. So last year you had to basically send in who you wanted us to register for you, and then they got access to the whole database. This confines it, so they'll only get access to the match manager side of things, and you can actually give them the access rather than having to wait to come through us and things like that. So hopefully it'll be a much quicker process for you. You can basically give them access on Saturday morning if something happens at the last minute. So hopefully we'll find that much easier to be able to do it.
Yeah. One of the other things, obviously, when we're doing results is that, so we've completed one, and I know that my team for round 2 is going to be pretty much the same. What I can do is when I come in here, I can import my teams, and I can import my team from the 2nd of June. And what that will do is it will automatically import my teams into there. So that's a big time saver, especially if I know I'm only going to have one or two. I may have 1 or 2 changes, in which case I can go in and manage my teams here and make sure that I then put Regina back in, and it's done. Now, you had a question, Beck?
Yeah, can clubs get access to the beta environment to have a play around and work with members who might be match managers?
Yes, I'm more than happy to do that. I actually removed a whole lot of administrators from the beta environment in the last week because we were getting complaints from people getting emails about the transfer process that we were practicing with, or getting correct for this upcoming season. But I'm more than happy to give people access to the beta environment, and we can set up some competitions like this one, and just let people play and put results in, and we can give them access as themselves, and possibly access as a dummy opposition as well. So more than happy to do that.
What would be the easiest process for you, Kelvin, if they just email me and I'll get a list together for you?
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way. And then what we'll do is, some of them may already be in the system, in which case we'll just give them access to a team, and then we'll see if we can match them up so they can do some practicing.
So if you're in that position and you'd like us to set up access for you, if you just want to email me, ceo@bowlstasmania.com.au, we'll get that sorted for you.
All right. So the other thing, I guess, is access to the actual system itself. So within BowlsLink, every member who has basically a membership to a club should be able to access their own personal information. What you can do is, if you're unsure whether or not you have a membership and whether or not you have an email address registered with your club, you can come in and request to reset your password. And what will happen is, when you go reset, I can put in, if I put in an incorrect email, or an email that doesn't exist in the system, or I get this message which says token has expired, please start the process again. And if that's the case, all you need to do is contact either your club administrator, and they can put the email address in for you. Otherwise, if I do have an email address, what will happen is when I go recover password, Helps if I can spell it correctly. It's going to give me this page, and in a separate page or in a separate tab on my browser, I can open up and go to my Outlook and sign in.
The easiest way for you to know if your email address or your correct email address is actually registered with your profile, over the last few months, Bowls Tasmania has been sending out regular email updates to all members on the database. If you haven't been receiving that email, it means that you don't have an email address registered with your profile. So that's the easiest way for you to know. And as Kelvin said, you can contact your club or you can contact me directly, and I'll make sure that it is registered with your account. And you'll be getting updates as well as being able to access all of this.
Yeah. And then I'll get something like this little validation code here, which I can copy and paste back into where it says enter the code. I'm not going to do that because that's my one from yesterday. And then when I hit validate, what it will do is say, yes, you've been validated. Please put in a new password or the password that you want. And that will allow you then to access the system to be able to do, to see your information and to manage clubs and competitions and things like that if you want to, or if you're going to.
Once you also have access to your own profile, you can update your own details, not the in-depth stuff that your club needs to be able to access, but stuff that you want to. So your date of birth, make sure it's a correct one, and I would be very grateful if you did that. And also just making sure that the correct phone number's on there, or if you've moved, your correct address, things like that. So you can also update your own details, and that's available to any member of Bowls Tasmania.
So dates of birth, mobile numbers, email addresses, things like that are that take a lot of time for administrators to go and update as well. There's that there for you to be able to update, and we can do that just through the edit profile. We can go in, if they've spelt your name incorrectly, feel free to go in and do that. And then there's the personal information tab where you have everything else that you can put in. Emergency contact's probably quite a good one because a lot of clubs like to have those if you haven't got one in there already. Is there anything else we need to cover, Beck? It was even quicker than I thought.
Yeah, we've flown up through today, haven't we? Has anyone got any questions that you feel maybe we haven't covered enough today and that you'd like to know a bit more information on or a bit more clarification on? Hopefully one of the things that you're learning is that it is quite a straightforward process. Straight after the game, log on, get the results in while you've got the scorecards in front of you. Is Bowls Link available as an app, or is it only website based?
It's only website based at the moment. We're working with the developers to get what we would have as an app, which we think would probably be more of a scoring app. So an app's dedicated to putting results in rather than the membership side of things at the moment, because that seems to be what members want to be able to do via an app. But at the moment, it is just a website. But again, you can save that in your favorites on your phone. I was talking to a couple of guys at a tournament before COVID happened back in February, and they were commenting that the time it takes them to get served their beer after the game, they've normally put their results in on their phone while they're waiting. So once you've been doing it for a little while, or once you've done it probably 2 or 3 times, it's fairly straightforward and doesn't take very long at all, probably no more than maybe 1 or 2 minutes.
Another question, is Bowls Link looking at capturing stats? Example, how many games a member has played for their club? That actually already does that. That was available.
So let's go this way. It does that on a season by season basis. Are you referring to a continuation? So in other words, to see who's had like 200 caps at their club or 300 caps at their club? Is that more what you're referring to? Or was it more around, on a season by season basis, it will capture the number of games played by everyone?
Yeah, it says, yep, caps at club.
Yeah. So part of the issue with that is that we actually need a starting point because people obviously already have been playing at clubs for a fairly long time. So there are really two issues. One, we need a starting point, and that would be for a club to be able to put in a one-off marker of say 100, and then every time they've got selected to play pennant, it would tick over and add that as a marker. So then they would become 101 and 102 and 103. And we're looking at the possibility of doing that. The difficulty is when people change clubs, do we continue on as 105 caps, 106 caps to capture how many games they play, or is it a club specific thing, or do we need two counters in that case? So there's a few questions that sort of get asked every time someone asks that about the caps, but I think it's definitely becoming easier for statisticians to record how many people play how many games each season.
There's a question, last season the home side couldn't swap away team. Is this different this season? You should have been able to do that last year to match up. So the way you showed up, how you match up which
correct.
Played who.
Should be able to do that. Both teams, home and away, should be able to do that on any income or any games that have not been completed yet. So I should be able to go in here regardless of whether I'm the home team or the away team. In this case, I'm the away team, but I should still be able to swap my teams. The home team should be able to do it, and the away team should be able to do it. If you were having difficulty doing it, or if you have an example, let me know, because I'm very intrigued by that one, because that's the first I've heard of it not being able to be done by a home team.
So a couple of other questions that have come in. How do we score an 8 if it occurs? So that process would be decided by your particular region. So I would imagine that will be a part of their conditions of play or a part of their release prior to the season starting. But normally I think the process there would be that you would take a photocopy of the scorecard and send that in via email to your regional authority, and then they'll sort it out from there. So hopefully that answers that one. Another question, what about substitutes? How would you list them? So I'll let you do that one, but there's also from the same person, another question, umpires, and where do we name them?
Excellent questions. Substitutes is an easy one. If I go into manage team, part of my drop-down menu, I will always have an unplayed, which is someone who wasn't there, or a substitute. And the reason that we put substitute in rather than naming the person is because usually if it's a person from your club, it will count as a game for them for your club. And a substitute, in discussions with many different districts and regions, generally tends to be someone who is registered as a bowler for another club, is probably the best way to put it, and they would substitute in. And at this point in time, that would require access to their personal information. And there's sort of a process that we're working on to get that done. But at the moment, you just record a substitute like that. Second part of the question about umpires, it was discussed at a meeting in February that we would want possibly at the bottom down here a couple of fields for things like umpires, who the match managers were, possibly even things like green speeds, although not many places still record green speeds. That was sort of some regional Victoria and New South Wales stuff that came in there. But definitely we're looking at putting in a couple of text fields at the bottom that would allow you to pick from people or to type in names for match managers and umpires, because people seem to want that as well. So if people are asking for it, we're more than happy to try and oblige.
Another question, is there an option for push notifications or email alerts if team changes are made or entered? I suppose one of the things there is it should only be your designated person making those changes. So you should be well aware if anyone has made the change anyway, because only who you give access to is able to actually do that.
Yeah, there's not, at the moment there's not, and that's mostly because the people making the changes should be the people who have the authority to make the changes. So depending on how it works, your club may have one designated person who does every team, which is not necessarily what I'd recommend, but you may have one person per side that is responsible for making those changes. So that's what they're the ones who should be in the know anyway.
Was seeking to notify other team managers so they can confirm what if a match is called off, how do you enter a no result? So that's probably a good one, particularly like a washout or something.
Yeah. Now I have to remember. Curses on you people asking me these questions. I have a feeling that it's actually up there once I put the home team in. Let me just go and do that. What was that?
When you go to enter your results, there should be that option.
Yeah, when you go to enter the results, it should be a washout option or a no result option.
Yeah, and then I think it's...
Sorry, let me just...
No result. And
I'll find out who they're playing.
When you put that in, it will automatically generate the 6 points each or 8 points each or whatever the breakdown is for your particular competition.
Oh, it's their away team, that's why I can't put it in. 7. Let me just log in as team 7. And I'll see if I can demonstrate that.
There's a note that our club had a general login and shared password for match managers, so 1 or 2 people can enter all results. This system worked well. Look, it's purely up to your club to work out the best system that's going to work for your club. And obviously that's going to vary from, if it's a smaller club with limited teams competing to some of the bigger clubs that might have, 6 teams in action on a Saturday, for example, something like that. It's purely up to you to work out what system is going to work better for your club.
If I can speak from a systems perspective and from an auditing perspective, I sort of discourage people from using one login per club, purely because if 6 people have access to it and someone puts the results in incorrectly, then how do you trace who was actually doing it? Because it could have been anyone. I prefer to see people assigned it according to their profiles. As a home team, so here you go, as a home team on this one, I can forfeit matches or I can mark as unplayed. And if I mark as unplayed, I can say it was a washout. And that will give me an unplayed washout. And it should split everything for me in terms of points, but it may need to be completed by the opposition, which I can go and do now. But that was something that I know that everyone had difficulty with last season, and I know that we spent a lot of time trying to get that correct. And this may seem like an odd thing for me to have to go in to confirm a washout. By the way, my washouts are set up as 0-0 because I didn't put any of this in. But the reason that we confirm it as being a washout is because there have been cases in other states, and I'm sure it wouldn't happen in Tasmania, where people have travelled to a club, been told that it's a washout, they go home, and then the result is entered by the home team as a forfeit for the opposition not showing up. So there is a reason why we confirm washouts or unplayeds as well. But the home team would enter that as either as an unplayed, a washout, or as a forfeit for the opposition, and it would still need to be confirmed.
Yeah, and that would generate those points. So just in regards to the first part, Matthew was thinking to notify other team managers so they can confirm. As we said, it should only be your match managers that have got permission to make those changes prior to the game. And then as far as the opposition's concerned, all they're doing is checking who's on the screen as played and what's on the scorecard are the same thing. So that should be the cross-check. And you can't change it after it's been confirmed by both sides. So that hopefully should help that. Just a reminder for those that might be putting on questions on the chat, if you can just put it on the Q&A, it just makes it a bit easier for us to follow. I had to type 0 in each score box to get split points last year. So when...
that was for washouts and
Yeah.
heat-outs. Don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
They that can be set up by the administrator in terms of because it varies. It's so varied across the country. Some places, when you have a washout, you'll still get awarded shots and split points and things like that. And in some places, you don't. So with the nature of the game, that can all be set up at the back end, and you shouldn't have to do anything this season. It should just automatically occur when you mark it as a washout and it gets confirmed.
Any other questions at all? Had some really good ones today. There's been good questions.
I might have to add some of those for tomorrow. I'll have to set up the point system a bit differently so I can demonstrate washouts and heatouts.
So we often find by the time we get to the last session that's we've sort of been able to incorporate a few of the questions from the first 2 days. So that's the recording that tends to go up on the website. So it doesn't look to be any other questions at this stage. If you come away from this session and you think of other questions, still got questions coming in on the chat. How do you score a game that has been abandoned?
So it goes as an unplayed, and you would just put it in as an abandoned or as abandoned instead of a washout. I don't think there's any. Is there a difference in the point structure in your region between if a game gets washed out or a game gets abandoned, and what would be the difference? I guess would be my question. Because I would have said that a washout was an abandonment.
Yeah.
Or a heat out.
That's right. Yeah, either forfeit or so. Obviously, washout or depending on the abandonment reason, split points, and a forfeit.
And a forfeit is points for the team that has been forfeited against.
We just got a question: is date of birth optional? So the date of birth side of things is set up at the time of your actual member details. So I suppose it is in a way, but we'd like them to be correct with everyone. So we've got a lot of first of the first 1900s in our system as an example. I had to send a survey to all junior bowlers the other day, and apparently we have a lot of people that were born on the 1st of January 2020 playing bowls. Now, the main reason that we would really like to have that information is obviously it helps us statistically to know exactly our demographics that are playing the sport. But it also helps us to be able to contact the right people. So in that situation, I needed to contact juniors, and we had a lot of people receiving that email that weren't juniors. Or by the same token, we have an over 60s competition, and we would like to contact our over 60s. And there's an awful lot of people apparently that are over 60 because they were born on the 1st of the 1st 1900 who are actually a lot younger than that. So that's some of the issues we face by not having that date of birth in there correctly. It doesn't have anything to do with putting your results in for pennant. It's more a database issue, but we would really appreciate it if that information was correct.
Yeah. It's really important from a national standpoint to get some statistics around the age groups that play. And at the moment, nationally we've got 7,000 members who are 120 and about 4,000 members under the age of 10. So I don't think that they're correct, but it becomes hard to make policy based on demographic when we don't have accurate data to do things with. From a national perspective, I know that's one of our concerns is being able to make policies that actually suit our demographic that are playing.
That's right. And so one of the questions, can you guarantee cybersecurity is correct if the date of birth is entered? Yes, it is very secure, but one of the main things for that is, I suppose date of birth, like my date of birth, you can find anywhere. Honestly, you can find that on the Bowls Australia website. Actually, it's publicised quite far and wide. So yeah, but as far as the system goes, it is quite secure. Yeah,
so for people who are really concerned, it is hosted on AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, and it's protected not just by the Amazon Web Services firewalls and security, which are probably the best in the world, given that they are one of the largest web hosters in the world. But the developers have also put in place their own firewalls and security measures. And I'll be perfectly honest, if Amazon Web Services gets hacked, I'm not sure that a Bowls database is what people will be hacking. They will be looking for a lot more information, given how large that service is in terms of provisions. It's one of the largest in the world, probably. I wouldn't like to estimate, but a large percentage of anything cloud-based is hosted in Amazon as part of their web servicing. So,
question, do state bodies have administration access to Bowls Link, example, entering player data? And yes, we do. So what we've been doing as an example over the last couple of months is whenever we send out a newsletter, we've been advertising on our social media channels to say that the email has been sent. If you haven't received it, it means we haven't got an up-to-date email address for you. Can you contact us and we'll update those details? So we've been doing that for quite a number of players over the last couple of months to make sure that their email addresses, as an example, are correct. And again, one of the important things there is, and particularly over this period with COVID-19, there's been a lot of information that's been important for us to get out to not just clubs in our regions, but also the individual bowler, and lots of opportunities that we've been wanting to make available to them. So another reason why that information is important to us. And yeah, so basically, yeah, we can update any details if we need to as well. Any other questions coming in?
Good questions today, I have to say.
Okay, very good. All right, well, look, thanks everyone for your time today. Hopefully you got a lot out of this. If you do walk away from here and think of any other questions that you'd like to ask, please feel free to shoot them through to me, ceo@bowlstasmania.com.au. And if I can't help you with that, I'll speak to Kelvin and make sure that we get the correct answer through to you. So that's no problem at all. And as I said, the video will be available by the end of the week on our website. Up the top, you'll see a thing that says media, and then a thing that's under that drop down says webinars. And on there, we're listing all of these webinars that we're running. So at the moment, there's the website webinar up there. And as I said, the recording from this will be up there as well as a refresher closer to the season, or if any of your members need to refresh it. We'll also be sending out like a little manual. We'll try and keep it very concise and straight to the point with some pictures as a step-by-step process. So your match managers can have them in their folder on the day, and they can use that to refer to if they sort of just get to one point and they get a bit stuck because they just need to remember. And we're finding that pictures are a good way to do that. Screenshots of what it looks like on the screen. So thanks again. Big thanks to Kelvin for joining us again. And we've got one more session tomorrow. So I encourage any of your members to jump on if they need to.
Absolutely. Thanks, Beck. Thanks everyone for participating, and I hope you found it informative. And yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Beck.
No problem. All right. Thanks, guys. Keep safe, and we hope to see you on the green soon.